Okay, this lesson is going to be on properties of lines. Okay, properties of lines. So if you did graphing lines well, this is a piece of cake. If you didn't do it well, this is extra practice for graphing lines. Basically, on each one of our questions, we're going to have an equation. Okay, out of that equation, we're going to find the zeros, the x-intercept, the y-intercept, the domain, and the range. Okay, so if I start with this equation of a line, okay, we're going to graph it first. Okay, and to graph it, these are the ones. Okay, then I'm going to start at -3 on the y-axis. And because it's positive 5 slope, I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, always to the right one. Here's my line. Okay, now, all right, before we get into this terminology, I want to talk about what this terminology means. Okay, I'm going to go to a separate page. A zero and an x-intercept. Zero and x-intercept. They mean the same thing. And what they're in reference to, if you have a line, that is considered the x-intercept or the zero. Now, let's say this point is -3. Okay? The way you write if they ask you for a zero is you write x equals -3. If they ask you for the x-intercept, you write it as a coordinate, which is -3, 0. Okay? So that's the big distinction. It's the same thing, but how you write it's different. That's an x equals. Let me clean that up a little bit so we can see it better. That's going to be an x equals. That is a set of coordinates. This right here is the y-intercept. Let's say that's 2. When I write the y-intercept, that's 0, 2. Because remember, that's on the y-axis, so there is no x. Okay? That's one thing to talk about. The next thing to talk about is this concept of domain. Domain means x values. Okay? All the possible x values. And x values move right and left. Okay? Then you have range, which are y values. Okay? That moves up and down. Okay? Moves up and down. All right? So, here's what we need to do. Let me go back to this. Okay? So we need to find the zeros. So for us, that means this point right here. Now when you graph it in y equals, it doesn't always work out perfectly. And what you can do is you can come into the calculator, you go to menu, you go to graph, you type in your equation, and you can go ahead and draw it. Okay? Now I'm going to move this over so we can see it a little bit better. Okay, feel free to move yours around as you need to. Okay, so there's my graph. Okay, now what I can do is I can go to gsolve. Now another word for zeros, and I'm going to put this in here as well. This means root. Root and zeros mean the same thing. Okay, it's another same thing. So if I select root, it's going to tell me that it crosses at 0.6. Right there at 0.6. Okay, so we go back. That's going to be at 0.6. Now, how am I going to write that as a 0? X equals 0.6. And as the x-intercept, it's 0.6, 0. Now, the y-intercept we already know is -3. Now, once again, if you didn't know that, and you were in this, you can also go to gsolve, and y-intercept is right there. That also tells me 0, -3. To find the domain, what you can do is you can pick either point. Let's say I have this point here. Okay? I put a little cross on that point. In order to find the domain, I hold up my marker. Because what I want to do is I want to look to the right of the marker and to the left of the marker. If the line is on both sides, or the graph is on both sides, then it's all real numbers. So I look over here, I see it, that's good. Over here, I see it, that's good. So what I have for the domain, okay, is all real numbers. And that's what that R stands for. That stands for all real numbers. Okay? Now, range. Range is up and down. So what I do is I hold my marker and I say, okay, is my line going above the marker? Yeah, it's going below. So it's also, range is all real numbers. Notice how I've made my notation. little x with a bar for domain, because domain is x. X is all real numbers. Range, y, all right, y is all real numbers. Okay, so that's that one, all right? Okay, so on each one of these, I'm going to find the same things, okay? All right, so let's say this is my equation on this one. Let's say I got 2x, okay, plus 3y equals 6, okay? And I'm going to find the zeros, the x-intercept, the y-intercept, the domain, and the range. Okay? So what I'm going to do is, for this, because I got x and y on the same side, all right, I'm going to do 2x equals 6, 3y equals 6. And I'm going to divide by 2. That's going to be x equals 3. I divide by 3. I got y equals 2. So when I go down to graph it, 1, 2, 3, right there, 1, 2. Okay, so here's my line. Okay? Now, what's convenient about this is I already know the zeros because I plotted it. Okay? That is my zero. So that's an x equals 3. As a coordinate, that is 3, 0. Okay? The y-intercept is this point right here, which is 2, 0, 2. Now let's look at the domain. I can pick either point. Doesn't matter. Okay? So let's say I looked here. If I look to the right, do I see my graph? Yes. Look to the left? Yes. So my domain here is all real numbers. My range. If I look above, I see it. I look below, I see it. So my range is all real numbers. Okay? Let's do some more examples here. Okay? Same kind of thought process as we go. All right? Here's my next equation. Y equals negative 2/3 x plus 5. Okay? Now this is y, so I can graph this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There's a point. Now from this, since it's negative, I'm going down 2, always to the right. 1, 2, 3. Okay? And I make my line. Okay? Now, I am finding my zeros, my x-intercept, my y-intercept, my domain, and my range. Okay, now, this is one that I can type into the calculator, and you should get accustomed to doing that. So if I go back to exit, I'm going to clear it, delete, okay? Now, negative 2/3, negative 2 divided by 3. Notice where I put the negative. The x goes on the outside of that, plus 5. And I go ahead and I hit execute and I draw. There's my graph. So what I want to do is I want to go to gsolve, root, that's going to give me that, 7.50. Okay, that's 7.5. Okay, so that's x equals 7.5. My intercept is 7.5, 0. If you don't remember that that is your y-intercept, your calculator also tells you that. gsolve y-intercept 0.5. Okay, 0.5. Once again, I can pick any point. I'm going to pick this one. Okay. If I look to the right, do I see my graph? Yes. Look to the left. So my domain is going to be all real numbers. Okay. My range, if I look above, I see it. Look below. All right. My range is also going to be all real numbers. Okay. You should be seeing a pattern with lines like these types. Okay. Let me do another example. All right. Okay. Let's say my equation is x minus 3y equals 6. Okay? So what I do is I said x equal to 6, negative 3y equal to 6. Make sure you bring that negative with it. Divide by negative 3, that's y equals negative 2. Okay? That's the 6. It's already by itself. Okay? So when x are on the same side, that's what you do. Okay? So when I make my graph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 1 and 2, okay? Connect the dots. Okay? So my zeros, that's this one right here, which was at 6. My x-intercept was at 6, 0. Same thing as that. My y-intercept, 0, negative 2. My domain and my range. I'll pick either point. Let's say I pick this one. Okay? I'm going to use a different color. Okay? If I look to the right, do I see my graph? Yeah. If I look to the left, I see it. So my domain is all real numbers. My range, if I look above, I see it. I can see it even below. So my range is all real numbers. Okay? I think you're starting to get the hang of this now. All right? Now, I'm going to introduce two other ones. Okay? I'm going to introduce two other graphs. all right? Actually, I'll only do one more with that. Let me say I got my equation is y equals 2x. Okay. Now, when I go to graph that, okay, somebody's going to say, well, where do I start? Usually there's a number here. If you don't see a number there, it's 0. If you're missing a number in front of that, like for instance, you would get something like this, okay? The number in front of the x is 1, not 0, okay? So make sure you make that distinction, okay? Now, so when I'm going to graph that, it's going to be right here, okay? This means 2 over 1, so I'm going to rise 2 to the right 1, okay? So my zeros, my x-intercept, my y-intercept, my domain, and my range. Okay? Once again, if you would like to graph this, you can. Just go back and delete this. Delete to x, draw. Okay? So this is what I got. G-solve, root, 0, 0. So that means I'm x equals 0, my x-intercept is 0, 0. If you needed to figure out the y-intercept, G-solve y-intercept, whoops, exit. G-solve y-intercept is also 0, 0. And we should know that based on where it's crossing on the graph. Once again, all right, I can do this point if I like. If I look to the right, I see my graph. Look to the left, so it's going to be all real numbers. Okay, if I look above, I see it. Look below, I don't. That's going to be all real numbers. Okay, and there's your answer there. All right, let's move on to a couple of the other ones. Let's say I have an equation that looks like this. X equals 3, okay? Now, that means that is going to be a Vux problem. So I have a vertical line, okay? So I have zeros, x-intercept, y-intercept, okay, domain, range. If you want to, you can graph this in your calculator. Okay, if you go back to exit, I delete, make sure you delete. If you select type, and this one that's the x equals, I can now turn mine to x equals 3, enter, draw. I can get that information. You can see I line up. G-solve, root, execute. Okay, it's going to be 3, 0. So x equals 3. Now, when I go to do the y-intercept, G-solve y-intercept, okay? It's not going to give me 1. Here's why. Why is it not going to give me 1? It's not going to give me 1 because it doesn't cross the y-axis. So my answer here is none, okay? Now, I can use this point right here to make my little grid. Now, if I look to the right, do I see my graph? I don't. I look to the left, I don't see my graph. The only spot I see it is at x is 3. So what my domain is x such that x equals 3. That's it. That's the only place where it is. Now look at the range. If I look above my marker, do I see it? Yep. Look below, yep. So my range here, it's a little different, is all real numbers. Okay? All right? Let me do one with that's a y equals equation. Okay? Let's say my equation is y equals -2, okay? Well, what that means for me, all right, it's a horizontal one, like that, okay? Zeros, x-intercept, y-intercept, domain, range, okay? Now, does it cross this axis? No. So it does not have an x-intercept. It does not have a y-intercept. Because it doesn't cross it. Only crosses the y, and it crosses it at -2. Once again, I'm going to use this concept. If I look to the right, do I see my graph? Yep. Look to the left. Yep. So my domain is going to be all real numbers. Now, if I do my range, if I look above, do I see my graph? No. If I look below, do I see my graph? No. It's only at y equals -2. So such that y equals -2. Okay? And I'm going to do a couple more of these just to make sure we understand. Okay? Let's say my equation is x equals -5. Okay, well, how do I graph that? Well, -5 over and a vertical line. Okay, remember, hoi, bucks. If it's x equals, that's vertical. Okay, y equals, it's horizontal. Okay, zeros. Okay, clearly crosses at -5, 0. So that's going to be x equals -5. Okay, my x-intercept is also going to be -5, 0. My y-intercept, does it cross my y-axis? No. Domain, range. Okay? If I look to the right, do I see my graph? I do not. Look to the left, don't see my graph. It's only at x equals -5. Okay? Now, if I do the range, look above, do I see it? Yep. Look below, do I see it? Yep. So that range is all real numbers. Okay? And last one. Okay? Last one. Let's say my equation is y equals 4. Okay? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? It's a hoi. Okay? So I look at my zeros. Does it cross the x-axis? No, none. Do I have an x-intercept? No, I do not. Do I have a y-intercept? Yep, 0, 4 is my y-intercept. My domain, my range. Okay? Once again, if I look to the right, do I see it? Yes, I do. Look to the left, I see my green arrow. So that means it's going to be all real numbers. Okay? If I look below, do I see it? Nope. Look above, do I see it? Nope. Only at my line. So it's only at y equals 4. Okay? I think we did an example of each there. Okay, got y's. Alright, x, y, x, y. Okay? Alright, so that pretty much sums it up. And if you notice, a lot of the, when you have a line that's got a slant to it, the domain and range is going to be all real numbers, so you don't have to worry about that. But when you have the ones that are vertical and horizontal, you got to look at what you have. Okay? If you use this T and ask yourself, does it go above and below, you follow the same process. That's all real numbers. Okay? All right? So that should give you some good review for graphing and also the properties.